So welcome back to the workshop, and if you remember in a previous episode I was working on this. Had a slight leak on the regulator, which probably wasn't too bad, but I had a leak on the superheater as well. So I've taken the superheater out and the leak was on this side, up in that joint. We'll have a look at that shortly, but as that came out, we're taking the regulator out. I'll show you where I've got to, and then we can discuss where I'm going, because I think it might just be a case of giving it a little bit more of what I did before. Let's take a look. So I've taken all the bolts out, but you see the steam pipe is at the bottom of the bush. And if I raise it to the top, it doesn't take much force to do that, but it does take a little bit. And if we look at the back end, I don't know if you can see that, but the regulator assembly is twitching when I lift it up. So which means it is putting a little bit of stress through it all and possibly misaligning it all while it's in there. So I'm going to try that. I'm going to try lapping it a little bit more, but we'll take a look at it when it comes out. Now, from my point of view, the biggest problem with this type of regulator is you can't test it until it's in the engine, because the tube here that just supports it all is not steam tight at this end. It's not steam tight at this end. You're just reliant on the disc inside bearing on that face on there. So you haven't actually got two faces that are secure. And with the little bit of stress that's being put on this, and it must have been putting stress on there as well, causing the misalignment, was just, I think, it's just pulling the seat apart. So I'm going to give it a little bit more freedom to wobble, and I'm going to give it a bit more lapping on the face. So, with the aid of a bit of grinding paste, I've got those faces spotless, just spinning them together with the grinding paste in between. I did drive that with the spindle, and I drove the spindle with the drill. Just not too fast, just take the effort off my hands. Allows me to keep it nice and straight and in line too. Having done that, I've made a really nice face, I think. Hopefully that refocuses. But it's made a couple of nice mating faces. But while cleaning it all out, I discovered that the locking screws go into the steam space. So when I put this all back together, I need to make sure I seal these screws. That might be where some of my leakage was. And now I need to find that. Oh, there it is. So I'll get this put back together. I have eased the hole in the middle of that slightly as well. So it's got a little bit more movement on the end of the shaft. So I can put that back together, put it back in the engine, and have a look at the superheater. So moving on to the superheater, a bit of a clean up with a wire wheel, and it doesn't look to be a huge amount of solder in some of the joints here. Yet on the bottom it's flooded. So I'll clean it up a bit more, flux it, and just try and touch a bit more solder everywhere. So in the process of editing this, I discovered that I haven't actually recorded the soldering of that joint, or looking at it afterwards, but I did solder it using my MAP gas torch. It might have been easier if I'd taken it to the club and used the oxy propane, just because with the MAP gas I couldn't focus the heat onto the little tube in the middle that's going between the two headers. So although I got the header hot enough for the solder to flow, I was struggling to get it flowing on that smaller tube. So it did take a little while to solder that, but I did get it done in the end. It wasn't pretty because of that issue, but it is done. Back in the engine. Now let's take a look at that. So I'm back out here putting it back together. I have soldered up the superheaters and they're back in. Just a little word of advice, I suppose. Ordinarily with a banjo bolt, the disc in the middle here, you're sealing between the head of the bolt, the block in the middle and underneath. And what's coming up the outside is the same as what's in the bolt. So you don't normally need to put tape or any sort of thread sealant on a banjo. However, because this is part of the regulator, the tube up the middle is regulated steam, but the steam pressure around the outside is the boiler pressure. So the middle thread is steam chest pressure, the outer thread is boiler pressure, and the area in the middle wants to be regulated steam as well. So you don't want steam going up the inner thread because that needs to be sealed off. The inside needs to be sealed off from the steam space, as does the outer. So I just thought I'd mention that because I have had conversations with people in the past saying, well, why do you need to put thread sealant on that? So that's the reason why. So I'm going to get this back together and then we can tomorrow give it a test. So I'll come back to you later. Me from the future here. We're all back together. Everything's reassembled boiler wise. There's just the petticoat and all that to go in first, but I want to test it first. Now I don't know if you can see, but it's getting a bit chilly out here. But that tells me two things. Firstly, it is time to pack in for the night. And secondly, it is time to crack out my emergency procedure for such conditions. Cheers. Oh, that will warm me up lovely. Now I'll be back in a moment as far as you're concerned, and we will start testing that engine. So we're now the next day. I've not put the air on to this yet. I've hooked it up, not put the air on yet. Shut the regulator. We'll see what happens. Oh, disconnected in the other room. So, the compressor's set to about 50-60 pound at the moment. And so far, that is not turning. So, the first thing I heard there, you wouldn't be able to hear it. I can hear the ball lifting and then snapping shut. I am happy with that. So, while I'm here, I will just have a quick look around inside the smoke box. just thinking it's all dry, but no leaks. But of course the regulator's shut, so the superheaters will be tight, or appear tight. I think the seat that the ball dropped onto in the sniffing valve wants looking at. Otherwise, the rest of the smoke box looks good. Obviously, there's not a lot of oil in the cylinders at the moment, so hopefully, as the engine runs and the oil gets pumped through, it will get better. So, I think we're on to a winner. I'll put this back together and hopefully we'll give it a test at the club on Sunday if the weather's not atrocious, which it is looking like it might be at the moment. But I think we're done. So as always, thanks for watching. We are going to come back to this and do a test and have a little look at the engine when I do get it to the club. I just wanted you to get to this as soon as possible. So, as always, thanks for watching. Please do let me know what you've liked, what you've not liked, what you think I could have done better. We're always a learning curve. So, yeah, let me know what you thought. Like, share, subscribe, do whatever you want, and I will be back soon. Take care.